Thank you for joining Pioneer. I'm Chris with Norman Public Library Central, and this is the 21st video in our series on the Swift computer programming language. In our last lesson, we learned about protocols. We added the Encodable protocol to our book class. The Encodable protocol allows our book class to encode itself into a JSON string, so we can use a JSON encoder to create a JSON object that we then printed onto the screen. Your challenge was to create another class that conformed to this protocol. Here's my solution. I've created a DVD class. It conforms to the Encodable protocol, just like my book class did, but has a few additional pieces of information. And of course, I can create it and write it out in exactly the same way that I did with my book class. In today's lesson, we'll look at how you can create your own protocol. Let's have a look. We'll begin with the keyword protocol. And then we'll make a name for our protocol. We're going to make objects that can be checked out of the library, so we'll call these lendables. A protocol looks a lot like a class. We'll create a function but we won't implement the function. With a protocol, you're telling classes that they must implement these functions, but you don't actually provide the function to the class. Let's create a second function in our protocol. We've now created a protocol that has two functions. Let's apply it to a new class. When I try to create a class that must conform to a protocol, and I don't implement the functions that the protocol requires, the compiler will warn me, but it will also provide some assistance to me. If I click the error message, it asks if I want to add the protocol stubs, and I can click Fix. And it has automatically added the basic outline that I need for my checkout and my return item code. This can be a big time saver. For our checkout, we'll allow you to check things out whenever you want, so we won't worry about that. And the return does nothing for now. These are called function stubs. They'll compile, but they don't actually do the correct job. Let's add a second class. Now let's write some code in our Swift in small bytes function. I'd like to make a list of materials that are available for checkout at my library. So we'll make this an array, and we'll make it an array of lendable objects. Even though lendable isn't a type, it's a protocol, we can tell Swift to create an array where everything in that array must conform to that protocol. Let's add two items to our library. So even though book and DVD are completely separate classes, we're able to put them both in the same array. And we can loop over that array and use any of the functions that lendable guarantees exist. Swift is warning me here that I am discarding the output from checkout. Remember, checkout currently returns true or false, indicating whether or not the checkout succeeded. We can silence this warning by telling Swift that we meant to ignore the item by saying _equals. Your challenge is to add another function to the Lendable protocol that tells us how many days you can check the items out for. Good luck!